Hello, my name is Mrs. Ingle, and I'm going to be reading La Linea today out of Un Poquito Español, so I generally tend to skip a lot of the Spanish, so pardon me for that. I'd like to read 18, 19, and 20, but we'll see how far I get. It might just be 18 and 19. Remember, if you are in my guided group, we always think about how does this chapter contribute to the plot of the story. Who? It's always going to be Miguel. What is he doing? Why? What does that prove, show, or reveal? And why is that important? Here we go. Chapter 18. They called it the People Killer. It was an ordinary freight train that passed through once a day, and it was one way to get north without paying a peso. It had oil cars, rounded, sleek, and shiny, and an open hopper cars carrying grains or scraps of metal. Ladders ran halfway up the sides of the faded orange, yellow, and brown cargo cars. It was simple, they said. As the train slowed, you ran alongside, grabbed one of the ladders, and hopped on. Everyone told us how easy it was to hop on board the train, and everyone told us about the unlucky ones who didn't make it. The ones who survived were all over town, broken and abandoned, but still living. They were everywhere. One, a woman they called Angelita, sat outside the shabby clinic, telling her story to anyone who would listen. The train had cut off both of her legs mid-thigh when she lost her grip and fell beneath the wheels. She would have died if two others hadn't jumped off to drag her from beneath the train and stop the blood flowing from her limbs. Another, called Santos, wheeled himself clumsily through, begging for money so that he could return to his family in Honduras. He was paralyzed from the waist down. All four fingers of his right hand were gone. They said that Santos was pushed off the train. Somebody wanted his place on a ladder that already held 5 others. "We're going to hop on anyway," I declared to Elena. We watched Santos steer his wheelchair toward the bus station. There were always people there willing to give up a peso or two, out of guilt. They were getting out of here. Santos had to stay. "Okay, Miguel. We're young and fast, right, Miguel?" Elena added. Maybe Santos was just too slow or something. I didn't remind her that we had no choice. We walked to the train yard in the early evening. A gentle breeze lifted up some scattered papers. Halfway there, Elena skipped, then hopped, then showed me just once how fast she could run. "See, Miguel, see?" she said. "I can do it." "I know," I yelled to her. "We will, Elena." Things had changed between us. I knew how it felt to be macho, to try to boss Elena around, to ignore her, to fight with her like I did in San Juanito. Things felt different now. Since Morales, since Camilo, since Juanito, we crossed through the yard littered with side tracks, broken down freight cars. I put my ear to the track to listen for the train the way Chuy and Lalo and I used to do in San Juanito. The hot, fat metal rail held no clues. I crawled up onto one of the cars and pulled Elena up after me. Its big doors gaped open and we sat with our legs dangling down. From here we could see the train coming. We'd have time to position ourselves and to get ready. In the near distance, the small group was making its way to the train yard. One of them pointed and gestured and moved his body along the track as if he was shadowing a moving train. He lopped, picked up speed, and grabbed an imaginary ladder. And then I heard a familiar voice talking nonstop to the others. "See, this is how you do it," he instructed. "Just run and hop right on." "Look who's here, Miguel!" Helena yelled, jumping down. "Come on!" Within seconds, Javier and Elena in a giant abrazo. He reached out and pulled me in the circle. I felt myself resist, but Elena grabbed my waist and tugged me closer. We made a triangle. Javi, Elena at the base, me floating loosely on top. "I knew I'd see you again. It's fate, really," Javi said. Javi's companions, a young couple, a woman pregnant, smiled at the reunion. Then they turned around and left, going back the way they came. They're scared of the train. I told them what to do, but who knows? Maybe they'll try, maybe they won't, Javier said with one breath. Good thing you're leaving. I'm glad to get out of here myself, he continued. Morales struck me in jail for a day. He never figured out I tricked him. Then he put me on the other side of the river. But, just like I told you, here I am again. Javi seemed happy, even joyful about tricking Morales and making it back. But his eyes were red and his face was drawn. He hadn't slept. I could see that. Within seconds, Javi put himself in charge. He took each of us by the arm and propelled us down the train tracks. We'll get the train down there. So here's one thing that you want to think about. The actions, right? So we have Miguel and Elena at this point have to hop on a train, even though it is dangerous. Okay, so now we're going to say what gets revealed. Are they actually able to get on the train? Okay. Let's see. It's better. I've checked it out already. The Federales swing through the train yard every now and then. We followed the tracks for several hundred meters. The grass on both sides was firmly packed down, evidence that many train hoppers had waited here before us. In the thick undergrowth beyond the grass, others had cut back the brush to make places to sleep or to hide. A dead campfire blackened the ground in one spot. A faint wisp of smoke curled up from the center. A pack of yellow-eyed dogs emerged from the brush and wandered toward us, sniffing the ground. The leader eyed us boldly. I picked up a rock and flung it in his direction. Javi ran after the dogs, screaming, "Go on! Get out of here!" I hoped the dogs weren't like the rats. Another bad omen. All right, chapter 19. Javi chose a spot just before the track curved for us to wait. "This is good," he declared. "It'll be going slow enough for us to hop on. It'll be here in less than an hour. You'll see, no problem. But first things first." From his pack, he took out a pocket knife, the kind with the miniature tools attached. He pulled out the little scissors made from one side and held them out to Elena. "You need to cut your hair off, all of it, short. Then put your cap back on," Javi instructed. He looked away but continued, "You should disguise yourself. The less you look like a girl, the better. There are train gangs. They will rob, steal, beat people up." Javi paused. "Finally," he looked back at Elena. "They will rape many women." The look I saw in Elena's eyes when Camilo robbed us returned for just a moment. She grabbed the scissors and began to hack away at her hair. It fell to the ground in dark, thick clumps. She cut and cut her hair. Then she asked Yavi to cut it even more, until it lay like a small black cap on her head. When he finished, Yavi stood with the little scissors open in his hand, staring at Elena. "You look like Magdalena with your hair like that. She cut it short for herself last year. She plays soccer, climbs trees, runs. She said she didn't want to bother with her hair. Really, you could be hermanas. You look so much like her." Yavi seemed unable to move. He seemed stuck to the ground. He couldn't take his eyes off of Elena's face. "What else, Javi? What else?" Elena demanded. She just wanted to finish. She just wanted to get it over with. Elena looked down at her clothes, her pants, her loose shirt, her sneakers. All of them could have belonged to a boy. It looked like a good disguise to me. With her cap pulled down over her eyes, she would fool almost anybody. Yavi turned and dug into his backpack. He pulled out a black marker and handed it to me. His hands trembled. He looked at me in the eye, but he seemed like he was looking straight through me to a place long away. Write Tango in big letters across her chest, he said. "The threat of AIDS might stop some men." I swallowed hard and I took the top off the marker and wrote the words in thick black letters above Elena's small breasts. It was warm, but she was shivering anyway. I shivered too, at all the things I didn't know and didn't want to know. And how could I protect Elena when I didn't have a clue about all the things I wasn't supposed? that I was supposed to protect her from. Of course, Hobby had a plan for getting on the train. He made us run through the steps 10 times before he was satisfied. I didn't see why we had to practice hopping on the train. We were young and quick, and there was no one else around to fight us for a spot on the ladder. It's coming! Can you hear it? At that moment, the train blew loudly. It was close, very close. Come on, get in position, Hobby demanded. We lined up, Elena in front. We began trotting along the tracks, eyes on the crossed ties to avoid tripping. Suddenly, the train came roaring up, a giant creature with whirling steel wheels. It was moving much faster than I had imagined it would, and we had just one chance to make it on. Elena! Elena! My voice was swallowed up by the noise of the beast. Faster! Más rápido! I glanced backward over my shoulder. Javier was right behind me. Get the first one you can, I yelled to Elena. Elena ran even faster, and in one motion, she leaped to the lowest rung of the freight car ladder. She hung on with one hand, turned, and shouted, Miguel, Miguel, come on! She held out her free hand. It was picking up speed, fast. For a moment I managed Elena fading into the distance. I saw myself tripping and falling, dragging into the stomach of the monster. It ate me up, and I felt nothing. Go, Miguel! Javier puffed in my ear. Now! From somewhere, I found the speed I needed. I grabbed the rung with one hand, Elena's hand with the other. We moved up the ladder, and somehow Yavi attached himself below us. The train rounded the corner, and then from the bushes, from the grass, dozens and dozens of people began to throw themselves onto the train. They ran and pushed and shoved. A few ended up like us, clinging to the ladder. The others were like a swarm of pesky flies that the train just swatted them away and moved forward. The young couple, Javi's friends from the train yard, ran clumsily along. The husband urged his pregnant wife to go faster. She never had a chance. They crumpled together to their knees next to the track. A thin little boy scrambled easily up the ladder only to lose his grip suddenly. He fell like a leaf, silently. An old man with watery, desperate eyes looked like he would have made it, but at the last moment he just reached for Yavi's extended fingers. The tip of his cowboy boot caught the railroad tie. He tripped, stumbled, and disappeared without a sound behind the grinding wheels. It was over as fast as it began. Within seconds, the train moved beyond the unlucky ones. Yavi, Elena, and I crumbled numbly into the top of the car, laying down flat. Elena in the middle, Yavi cried quietly. The roar of the great monster turned into a rhythmic, low rumble. We held hands and turned our bodies toward the front of the train, facing north. So Miguel and Elena had to hop onto the train even though it is dangerous. It is revealed that they make it. It is revealed that they make it. Okay. I just want to see how long chapter 20 is. 2, 4, 6. All right, I think I'm going to do chapter 20 next week. And so I hope you guys have a great weekend. And I will be reading chapter 20 next week.